Good evening, all. It's another quiet evening here on Wednesday. This is how it looked outside about 15 minutes ago. And that's a close up of a contrail. There's a flight going from Houston to Salt Lake City. And you can see that little plume moving off with the upper level winds. That's about all there is to look at outside. We're still, I guess, a few days away from any interesting weather, so let's check it out. Here we've got Texas. Well, yeah, I'll show you this one. It's just perfect. All right, yeah, see down here in, let me move this down. Got that east-northeast flow across Texas, so we don't have the Gulf opened up with that deep southeasterly flow. We're getting this recycled polar air coming in from the Midwest. And you can see it kind of arcing around to the north, up into Kansas and Colorado. But there is a frontal boundary through here. I don't know if you can see that. There's some southeast flow here on the coast, like that, and northeast flow over Arkansas and Tennessee. So that definitely marks the location of possible front. So, well, one way we can do that is to just look at the wind direction and just use that with the temperature and dew point to kind of pin that down. Another way we can do that is to use the digital atmosphere software here. It has an analysis, temperature, and then potential temperature option. And this normalizes all the temperatures to 1,000 millibars. So it kind of removes the effect of elevation. And if we keep in mind that the front is on the warm side of a gradient, we would expect to find it about right here. Because see, we've got this gradient of potential temperature, and the end of the gradient is right there. That's where we have reached the warm air. And from there south, where we've got the warmest temperatures that there are. So we can kind of use that principle to kind of like draw it through here. There's not really a cut and dry solution to putting this boundary down, but that can help you get started. So we would bring that from here up into this region in Kansas, and there it gets kind of obscured. But there we can fall back on the actual data, and we've got 77 here in Woodward. That's off the edge there. And the winds become a little bit more easterly out here around Tulsa. So I don't know, that's not much of a boundary, but this southeast flow here, right there around McAllister, that definitely clues in a possible push of cold air through the eastern part of the state right there. And there's Paris, Texas, and that contrasts with the southeasterly flow right there near Dallas. So those are some techniques you can use to do frontal analysis using limited data like we have here. Very benign weather pattern. And of course we can always fall back on just the isobars. So let me plot the pressure every 2 millibars. Pressures are very weak, but we can see 1018 up here in Arkansas. Up to the north there's a 1020 off the top edge. But down here is a 1016. And you can kind of see a trough here in central Mississippi. So that would suggest a possible boundary falling in that trough, kind of like that. And then we can bring that maybe northward. So there's another technique you can use. So what's been going on in Texas? Here's what it looked like around 12:30 p.m. from the polar orbiter satellites, and you can see a lot of popcorn and thunderstorms west of Fort Worth. This is Fort Worth, and this is Dallas, and Abilene is going to be off the edge about right here. So in between those cities, a lot of random showers and thunderstorms developing. And I'll show you something interesting, what this looked like on the radar. So if you'd like to take a look at that and notice how the showers are just west of Fort Worth, probably the best towers right here. And a really good tower up here, so I'm going to switch it over. Now let's look at the radar. Of course it moved, I think it refreshed, so let me put that back. That's going to be right there. That's the exact same time as the polar orbiter image. So you can see there's Fort Worth, and then right to the west there's our showers. And I think the strongest cell that we saw on the polar orbiter data was this one right here, up near Wichita Falls. So just to compare that again, there's that cell near Wichita Falls, very cumuliform development. Don't have that glaciated cirrus appearance here over Arlington. And those are some tools you can sometimes use when your radar is down and you're forecasting for places like southeastern Montana where there's poor coverage. You might fall back on some very high-res visible imagery. And with a half-mile visible imagery coming online with the new GOES series next year, we're going to be using that a lot more, it looks like. Going to get very high-res data in real time when that's online. So here's the reason we had all those storms. We can take a look at the sounding for Fort Worth this morning. And we've got a very uncapped air mass and kind of a steep lapse rate. This segment here leans very far over to the left. It's not standing up vertically like this. So that, combined with this good moisture supply right there, that's going to give us a lifted parcel kind of like that. And when that falls to the right of the environmental line, we expect precipitation. And there's no capping to really keep those storms from forming. So this has precipitation written all over it. And early precipitation too, since we're lacking the cap. We'll take a look at one more other sounding. Maybe we'll look at Norman. There they've got a little bit of a warm layer aloft. This looks like a very weak frontal inversion about 3,000 feet off the surface. And a little bit of cool air beneath that. And let's see, above that looks like a very humid layer up here because the moisture and temperature lines are very close together. So that signifies probably a cloud base at about 14,000, 13, 12,000. And so we're probably seeing some altocumulus through there this morning. So that's our little look at the soundings. And let's check out the GFS forecast. This is the current picture. See that high pressure over the Great Lakes. And that's helping to push down some very cool recycled air into Texas and the southern U.S. And you can kind of see maybe some evidence of a front through the southern states. But we're starting to get on the west side of that high and starting to pick up that southerly flow over the high plains. Now the purple is going to be your high precipitable water. That's where your dew points are very high through a deep layer. And we can see that the strongest precipitable water values are offshore, down here south of Houston, south of New Orleans. So it looks like as we move forward, it looks like by tomorrow midday, some evidence of a little disturbance right here south of Houston off Port Aransas, Corpus Christi. So we may see that on the satellite data. And it looks like the disturbance kind of moves inland off to the west. But some of this moisture starts making its way inland into the central U.S. And then by, let's see, over the weekend, very weak high pressure moving through the Midwest. And we just pretty much end up under deep southerly flow across the central U.S. Meanwhile, high pressure over Ohio, that's going to keep the northeast very cool and dry. See all this dry air through the eastern U.S. So this is Tuesday next week. Then we move forward a little bit, and we can see a new system forming up along the U.S.-Canada border. See that right there? Very deep easterly flow here. So that's our next system coming in towards the weekend, 23rd, 24th, 25th. So that's going to be our next shot of cold air. You can see it starting to take shape there and sweep into the Midwest. And it looks like that a chunk of that does move down into Texas, but the bulk of the cold air is probably headed east, it looks like. And I did look at the Gulf data, and I really didn't see anything heading this way. It looks pretty inactive down in this area. Towards the very end of the run, it did show one little tropical storm, maybe down around Jamaica towards the 25th, 26th. But that's, of course, looking into a crystal ball right there. But we have a couple storms there. You can see Julia inland right there, tropical storm. Ian is continuing to move north, and this is a new system south of New Orleans that may come together in the next couple of days. And just putting that together, got kind of a split flow pattern across the U.S. This is the 500 millibar, the 250 millibar chart. So this is up at about 34,000 feet. And you can see the polar front jet mostly up in Canada right now. So there's the axis for that. And then south of there in the desert southwest, there's our subtropical jet. So moving forward into the weekend, very strong band of subtropical jet over Texas. So when we have that, that tends to keep precipitation chances up a little bit, so that with the moisture coming in from the Gulf, we'll be running some moderate precipitation risks this weekend and into early next week. You can see a new jet segment coming in the Pacific Northwest, so that's going to be the next weather maker. It's going to couple up with that next surface system over the Dakotas late next week. And then we see this troughing over the west coast. So this is polar air starting to move southward. And we get a little bit of ridging up in Canada. And you can see the ridging really gets going up there in Alaska. So that's going to really amplify the patterns quite a bit. Another ridge moves in, and there's that. The models keep signaling this very strong northerly flow towards the end of the month. So this may put us in the pattern for our first shot of strong polar air coming down into the central and east U.S. So this could be significant later on this month if that pans out. All right, let's see. Let me check the chat here. Somebody asked what site the models are on. I went to this wxweb.meteostar.com. I like the presentation of the models. They're very clean and pretty easy to navigate. Some of the other model sites, they tend to fight with my mouse when I'm trying to do these weathercasts. Meteostar there, it works pretty well. I'm pretty happy with that. But this Meteostar is free. So I'm not subscribed to anything here. You should be able to pick this up with your browser, and they make most of their money through these ads here, looks like. Well, I guess they're probably advertising their own products. All right. I think I am done, so I'm going to go ahead and let you guys go. And it's likely I'm going to run a little bit late tomorrow because I'm going to be up in Dallas, but I will keep these weathercasts going. I'll probably be looking at maybe 10 or 11 o'clock for a start time. And We may be able to do 720p for the webcast. We'll just see how it goes. But anyway, I appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you then.